Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I am proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. This is a item thing, this photo, this quote from this photographer that James had found. And so I just wanted to show you this really quick because it's one of the things that I can always show you 1,000 more things, but some of the things are just so cool. It's just the way they are. They just stand alone, and they're just amazing and stuff, right? And it's so incredible. Now, this person the person that's doing this is a photographer taking a photograph of Michael Jackson when he's alive. Okay, so his sentiments about what he's talking about in this photograph, this is before I started doing my story, because my story would have started officially. My investigation started like 6 months after Michael died, and then like a year after Michael died, I was actually really getting into it and stuff, right? But so this is completely before. So that's what I want you to see, like how important this is, that this sentiment was occurring before my story ever started, right? The same thing about what I'm talking about today with Michael Jackson's eyes. So let me read what it says here. It says, Michael's eyes were his most defining feature. Now, when I just have to mention things because like so many people, I have to say just how sad I am at how dumb the society, the human race has become. And it was done deliberately to you people. And so I feel bad for you, but you got to take some responsibility over your own behavior and your own actions, So even if they did that stuff, like they fooled me and they tricked me and stuff, but luckily I was able to be strong enough, and I happened to be influenced by something at the right time, and I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was Oliver Stone's movie, The Doors, right? And in that movie, The Doors, it says a lot about Jim Morrison taking LSD, and he's like, let's try acid, Ray. And Ray says, no, man, my last trip was a bummer. And Morrison says, I never had a bummer on acid. And he, like, in the first, like, half hour of the movie The Doors, he's talking about acid a lot. And then he's talking about peyote, and they go out to the desert and they trip on peyote, right? So at the time, seeing that movie, I saw the movie before I had done LSD. And, but seeing that movie, it was all of me and my friends, all of us at the same time, we all instantly said, we've got to try LSD. And that's exactly how it happened. So if I wasn't influenced by that movie to try LSD, because there was also like a little bit of a resurgence of a hippie scene really broke out right around that time when that movie, the Oliver Stone's The Doors, came out because of that thing. And like the Grateful Dead were still touring at that time. So there's like Grateful Dead was getting popular again. And, there's a little bit of hippie movement that came around because of that. And I blame it on that movie, because that's what actually got me to do it. So if I would never have done LSD, like I said, then I would be just a stupid loser like all you fucking idiots. Like, if you've never taken LSD or mushrooms, which would be psilocybin, and other drugs that are like hard hallucinogenic, stuff like that. Like, if you've never done that, then it's like the thing, like you got to take the red pill, like in the Matrix, how they say the red pilled and stuff. And that's the thing. It's like, you take the blue pill, you go back to sleep, believe whatever the fuck you want, because that's like in that song he says, and the pills, he says, the one that mother gives you, don't do anything at all, go ask Alice when you're 6 feet tall, and so like that song totally, it's so after you take, because then that stuff when they're really talking about drugs, like heavy drug use and stuff, right? But then, so like after you do the drugs and you see the world the way it is. See, because one of the things like that you people don't know that have never taken hallucinogenics is that there's a completely different world, right in front of your face, and it's right there, and you don't see it. You can't see it. Your eyes, you got to refocus and see it in a different way. You don't get it. And then as soon as you take the drug, you instantly know, oh, all these people have taken this shit because it's so obvious, right? And so you step into it's like the Alice in Wonderland stuff, right? That's why like the song is the White Rabbit song, you know, and the Alice, and it's a Go Ask Alice, you know? And they say, the pills, it says the pills that mother gives you don't do anything at all. Oh, so like, okay, now so there was obviously like the hippie movement that existed, and I knew about LSD and stuff like that, and I never was going to take it because I was scared of like hard drugs, you know? I really, in my life, I stayed away from hard drugs as much as I can and stuff, right? And I would even consider alcohol. Alcohol is by far the strongest drug I've ever taken. And like, I've taken LSD and I've taken mushrooms and shit, right? I've taken methamphetamine. Fucking alcohol is by far, I mean, it's not even close. Alcohol is by far the hardest drug and the worst drug I've ever taken. You know, alcohol, you drink alcohol, you start vomiting because you're sick, because it poisoned you. It's literally, you've been subjected to alcohol poisoning, right? And then when you get all fucked up and you start spinning and you're like, sheesh, I'd way rather be baked on some fucking acid, but because the acid, you could be fucked up, but it's like you're gonna be fucked up for an hour, but then after that hour goes, then you're gonna feel great. You're like, I feel capital. Right? So that's the way it is. And so, but alcohol, no, man. You'd be puking, then you're spinning, then you're passed out and completely vulnerable and susceptible to any kind of freaking dangers that people want to impose their will on you and shit. You know what? One thing is, I took some Rufinol one time. Now, and I've taken some pills too. I used to take quite a bit of Soma. Somas. Oh shit! I used to take some Somas. It was funny because I had a bunch of them and shit, right? Because I'll just say I'm not going to tell you exactly who it was, but I had somebody that worked in the medical field that was giving me a box of like sampler packs of Somas because I had back problems and stuff, right? But that's a whole other thing. But whatever, because it wasn't really that I had back. It was something else that actually was going on and stuff, right? But I've kind of cured that now and shit. But so I was taking Somas. But when I first had them, like I said, I wasn't into hard drugs and stuff, right? And then I had some friends come over to my house, and these other friends that I was hanging out with, those friends were all into pills, and they were really hardcore, like drug users, real hard. I had a lot of really hardcore drug friends and stuff, right? So it's one of the things is like a lot of people don't know, it's like that culture and that environment, and like those people that are those hardcore people, they wouldn't associate with me unless I was cool and I could fit in. Even though I wasn't exactly like them, I was still cool and shit, right? And I did fit in. And so that's the thing with the culture, is that you people that have never experienced those drugs and stuff, you do not fit in. And the people that are into that stuff, they will not tell you shit. They ain't gonna tell you shit. Nothing. They're not going to let you around them. You're never going to be able to experience. They wouldn't sell you drugs. They would do nothing. If you fucking can't talk and walk the walk, you fucking smell funny and you walk funny. You don't fit. You're not part of us and shit, right? You don't. And everybody that's part of the shit knows instantly. You know, you're not one of us. You fucking smell like a fucking cop to me, motherfucker. Get the fuck out of here. Instantly spot that shit, right? So this one dude. This crazy drug, oh man, I had some really crazy drug friends and shit. We're good people though, we're really good people. But so he comes over to my house, and I've got this box of these samplers of Somas, you know. So I got like 80 pills because there was like 4 pills and I had like 20 packs of them or something like that. So I had like 80 pills, something like that, right? I didn't even know what they were, right? So, like I said, a friend just gave them to me because I just think they're like muscle relaxers or something like that, you know? And it's funny because if you people don't know, there's the story called, it's a book called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, who's one of the greatest. See, and I know the name Aldous Huxley because in that movie, The Doors, Oliver Stone's The Doors, when they're tripping and they come up with the name, and Jim Morrison's talking to Ray Manzarek. And they're walking on the beach, and they're talking about coming up with a name. And then Jim Morrison says, I got a name, The Doors. And the guy says, like, Huxley. And he says, The Doors of Perception. Acid. Right? Because Aldous Huxley wrote a book called The Doors of Perception. And he talks about all kinds of drugs, right? But that's in the movie, in the movie The Doors. And this is when we saw it, and when you hear him speaking this way, it's like, boy, these guys are really intellectual. This is not just some, like, garage rock and roll band. These are highly intellectual people, and that's because they were speaking that way and saying that stuff. That's what got me to try LSD, literally. That's what influenced me to do it. And so, like I said, me and my friends, we all did it the same night, and that first night, I almost got shot by a Mexican mafia dude, like, for real. Like, I almost literally... You know, I was tripping on acid. Next thing I know, I open the door and there's a fucking Mexican mafia dude there with a gun in his waist, and he was coming to collect money because the friend's house that I was at, he was a cocaine dealer connected to the Mexican mob, and one of their friends had just got arrested. Like my friend, he was stashing, the guy that got arrested, he had a slant nose Porsche Turbo, right? They were serious drug dealers. And so my friend, for a while, he was stashing that guy's car in his garage and shit, right? So I mean, like, this is the kind of shit, the environment, right? And but yeah, so I can't even tell all the story of what happened, but you know, next thing I know, I open the door, fucking Mexican mafia dude with a gun in his waist and shit, right? So and I'm tripping. My first night tripping acid shit, right? Oh man, it's just like those stories, man. It's like, those stories are cool stories as long as you live through it. As long as you make it through and you don't spend your time in jail or spend your time dead and you're not like permanently injured, then they're good stories and shit, right? But a lot of people don't come out of that shit. A lot of people have a lot darker fucking ends to their stories when you dabble into that environment. And I gotta stress that in the world that we live in now, there's fentanyl out there. So, you know, I highly recommend that you do not take any kind of drugs. I can't tell people now. In the old days, you could do drugs and you figured it was drugs, it was okay. But now, you don't know what you're getting. And if fentanyl's in there, it can kill you. And it's not a joke. Like in the old days, they would talk about like the drug heroin. See, like my dad he wasn't a chemist, but he was kind of a chemist. He worked in chemistry. Like, my dad worked in the chemistry lab at Compton College. Like, you people just don't know. The crazy shit, right? And my dad was, like, all into drugs. My dad was big into drugs and stuff, right? Like, when I tell my dad, I said, like, you were hooked on cocaine. Like, see, I didn't even know my dad. I knew he was hooked on some drug. I didn't know exactly. Then one time, I had a good friend, and his older brother was a hardcore druggie. He was probably one of the guys who I was getting the acid from because he had good connections and shit, right? So I became friends with my friend, his older brother. I became good friends with him because we started smoking weed all the time. Like, I remember one time, it was a funny... I go over there with the joint, and I was like, hey, you want to smoke a joint and shit, right? So I didn't know... As he's leaving the house, he tells his mom, hey mom, John's gonna go smoke a joint with me, right? But I'm outside waiting for him, right? So I don't know he tells his mom, and I'm still young, where it's kind of like, you don't know, it's like you kind of like, you don't trust the parents and shit, right? When you're smoking, you feel like you're doing bad shit, right? So you don't know and shit, right? So my friend says that as he walks out the door, he tells his mom, John's gonna go smoke a joint with me, right? So then we smoke a joint, we go back in the house, and his mom starts fucking with me. Hey, John, how you doing? That's what I'm saying is like, you people, it's like the people that haven't been through this stuff and don't know how people are, and just like, what a cool culture it is. It is actually a really good culture, but you don't want to get involved in drug addiction. So you got to be careful about what drugs you're using. Be very careful, like, you know, and dabble and shit, but don't get hooked. Like, weed's the only one. It's like, you can get hooked on weed and stuff, right? Weed's the one that you can smoke all the time, and it's really no big deal and shit, right? You can quit it when you get older. It's fine. But every other drug is dangerous. It's dangerous. I'm talking danger, baby. Right? So you just got to know what you're doing and shit. It's like the commercials. Like, before you go and do something you've never done before, you better know what you're getting into. And that's when they have that person diving into an empty pool. And that's the thing, is like, see, in that kind of culture, is like, when you do it, and like when you do acid, that instantly means it's like, well, what the fuck did I just do? What is this? Then you start studying fucking the hippie culture, and you start studying the people that created acid. You start hearing about like the guy that created the guy that made the discovery of the double helix for DNA. They say he was on acid when he discovered that and shit, right? So you understand, you start getting all these stories and all this cultural stuff, and like I said, then you understand that everybody, it seems like everybody's done it. Like you just entered into a world and you were the only one that was left out. That's the way it feels, right? You feel like, oh, everybody's doing this. I was being left behind. I didn't even understand this shit. Okay, so like, now if I had never done acid, like I said, I would be stupid like the fucking stupid idiot. All you stupid idiots out there who have never done this stuff, I'd be like you. I'd be thinking I was smart, thinking I knew stuff, but having no clue of this whole other world that's existing right in front of me. And I had no idea that it was even going on and shit, right? So like, doing acid was a big thing that sparked shit open for me and stuff. Okay, so I know I got sidetracked. Oh man, it's just life and shit, right? So, okay, so I'll get back to this because it was such a cool little thing is that, so the guy says, Michael's eyes were his most defining feature. Oh yeah, what I was telling you about that is because the art, is that this guy's an artist. Right? This guy's, that's his job. He's a photographer. He's trained. It's one of those things, it's like, just like people that don't know, it's like, okay, could you step in a batter's box right now and hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball or an 85-mile-an-hour curveball, you know? And you people that don't know, it's like, you would probably shit your pants. You have no idea how scary that is to have a professional big league pitcher throwing a fucking baseball 100 miles at your ass? That's scary. Like one of the best instances, like there's this classic instant with there was a batter named John Kruk. This was an all-star game. This guy was an all-star. He was an all-star. A professional league batter. He was an all-star. And there's this pitcher named Randy Johnson. And Randy Johnson was a lefty and John Kruk was a lefty. So that means the ball's coming like right at your head and shit, right? When you're a lefty like that, when the guy's throwing at the same side of the plate, the ball's like coming right at your head. And Randy Johnson was 6'10" and threw close to 100 mile an hour. Plus he had this nasty slider that fucking, like I said, it looked like it's coming right at your fucking head. And then it breaks and it goes right over the plate and it's a strike. Phenomenal. Like, but so just to step, and so there was this all-star game where Randy Johnson was throwing against John Kruk, and John Kruk was having a hard time standing in the box against Randy Johnson. It's classic and shit. It's so fucking funny, but it's one of those things to show you that's a big league hitter who's a good fucking, he's an all-star. He's a good fucking hitter. John Kruk was a good hitter. But he was scared. Randy Johnson was scaring the shit out of him. He was like, holy shit. But so what I'm saying about that, I was trying to express to you how good these people that are like professionals and shit, how good they actually are. And so when I'm saying this is when this guy, this photographer, he's a professional photographer, and you got to understand if he's photographing Michael Jackson, he's got to be well known. He has to be a professional, right? And people that are professionals are skilled at their craft in ways that people don't see. They're trained to look for those defining features, right? All that stuff. So when this guy's saying these words, you're talking about an expert. This is not me just being a random person. This is coming from the mouth of an expert before my story's ever even in the works. This is just amazing and shit, right? That's what I'm saying. This stuff, this one little thing is so amazing. It can just get me going on so many things. It's like I said, the picture says 1,000 words, and that's what it is. It's art, and it's just amazing, and it sparks all these thoughts and emotions and stuff, right? It's just amazing and stuff, right? I feel sad for the Michael Jackson fans who don't understand when you don't know how good Michael actually was. Like, you people think he was good and stuff, but if you people like never taken acid, you don't actually know what art is. You don't appreciate Michael Jackson's songs because you can have never even contemplate the actual genius creativity of what it took for him to create that stuff and what's actually in there. It's phenomenal. It is so good. Okay, so the guy says, Michael's eyes were his most defining feature. Way more than his feet. Now that line right there is just like, what? What? That is such a weird, like, what was he, that's what I'm saying too. Now, I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about there at all. I don't know. And it makes him sound, and it's one of these things where it can make him sound stupid. But he's not stupid. I'm stupid because I don't understand what he means by that. And if you would talk to him, I'm sure you would get a very clear and concise explanation of what he was talking about. But for me to say, what an idiot, because I don't understand what he's talking about, that makes him an idiot? No, that makes me an idiot because I don't understand exactly what he meant by that, right? But I'm not an idiot because I just admit I don't know what he's talking about. That doesn't make me an idiot to not know what he's talking about. What it would make me as an idiot to start downgrading him and belittling him because I don't know what he's talking about. And so then because people have a hard time placing the blame upon themselves, which that's, like I said, looking at the man in the mirror, I place the blame right where it belongs, right on me. I don't know what he meant there. I don't know exactly what those, it seems funny to me, seems to not make sense and no logic to me. But to him, there's something there that I just don't see, and I don't understand the way he saw it, right? So that's my fault for not understanding. It's not his fault. So that's the thing I deal with a lot of things with the people, the way they treat me and stuff. Okay, so he says, I knew I could capture his soul by focusing on his eyes. And that's exactly what happened with this photo. Michael's eyes were his most defining feature. I'll just skip the one line because I don't know what it means. It sounds better if I just skip that line. Michael's eyes were his most defining feature. I knew I could capture his soul by focusing on his eyes, and that's exactly what happened with this photo. Right? So let me show you the photo. Okay, and how many times of what I'm showing you, I keep showing you that what you're actually seeing is like all the pictures that people thought were Michael and Diana, like where it looks like they're almost going to kiss and stuff and their faces are together. What they were doing is showing you the defining features. That's what they were doing. The reason why they were posing like that is, and one of the main characteristic, the feature that they wanted you to see was that their eyes were the same. Right? And that's why Michael shows how many photos are there revolving around Michael Jackson's albums where his eyes are the centerpiece, the focal point of the photo. And you constantly see the Sanpaku Eyes in Michael, like on the Thriller album, you see it on the Bad album, you see it on the Dangerous album, you go to Invincible. I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot, and then on the History too. There's some picture on the History album where he's got his eyes in that focus thing. There's something, but it's like all over there's so many things that I don't even pay attention to because I've just seen it so much that I don't even pay attention because it's just like it's always happening, right? But there's a reason for it. People think it's not important, but it is important. Like the photographer is telling you that's how you can see his soul. That was his most defining feature. It was clear that it wasn't even close. It's his eyes were the thing. And like I said, when you actually look further into it, what you see is it's actually a characteristic trait called Sanpaku Eyes. And what happens is when you look, you see Diana Ross has it, and it exists in Diana Ross's family on her other children. But it does not exist in the Jackson family. Right? It's just one of those things. That's the soul of Michael. His eyes are the soul, and Diana has the exact same eyes. And the Jacksons do not have those eyes. And Diana Ross has talent, and the Jacksons do not have talent. It's like I saw because I didn't watch it. I can't really watch Matt's FTR thing. I saw that it said he went to a Janet Jackson concert, so I just had a clip to see. I'm like, okay, did he go to a concert? Is that actually Janet Jackson? It's like, yeah, he did. Okay, so that's one of the things is that you can't be a fan of Michael Jackson and be a fan of Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson sucks. Janet Jackson is a bubblegum pop garbage and shit, right? She didn't write any of the songs. She doesn't do it. She's not even like the real choreography. So choreographer. Oh, well, that's a tricky word to say. She doesn't even do the dance, the real dance. Other people do all that stuff. Teach her how to do it. And then the dance shit she does. If you look at the video of Scream and you look at Michael's dancing compared to Janet's dancing, and Janet even raps in Scream. Because she can't sing, she can't dance. When she was young, she was good looking, so that's what she did. She shook her little hot ass and shit because she was cute, and she sold her name. She sold the name Jackson's because Michael's the biggest star in the world and stuff, right? But she's no talent. Nobody ever would have signed her if her name wasn't Jackson. That's all you people need to know, like to understand the truth. If she was not related to Michael, there's no chance in hell she ever becomes a star because she has no real talent. Her only real talent is that she had the name Jackson. And after she's got the name Jackson, then you look at her and say, oh, well, you do got some talent. You're kind of cute and you got a nice ass and shit, right? And, then if her ass gets too fat, they just suck that fat out of her ass and pump it into her lips. Just do something like, fucking do some shit like that. So that's how it goes and shit. If her nose starts looking too big, fucking chop it up so you look more like Michael and shit, right? Look at LaToya, how ugly she was and shit before she got a nose job and shit. Oh God, she's like dog face. LaToya, she's like, literally, I'd be like, she's got like a dog face. She looked like a dog and shit, right? She was so nasty and ugly and shit, right? All the Jacksons, no talent losers and shit, right? So when Matt's FTR went to see Janet Jackson, that clearly just says one thing. He is not a Michael Jackson fan, because you cannot be a Michael Jackson fan and be a Janet fan, because Janet has no talent. If you like Michael Jackson, it's because he's got the talent, because that's it. You understand how talented he is. But if you think Janet has talent, then you don't understand how much talent Michael has, and you're not a Michael Jackson fan. Like I always say, anybody that calls themselves a moonwalker is not a Michael Jackson fan. They're not Michael Jackson fans. And anyone who calls themselves an MJ Innocent supporter like that, those people are pedophiles. They're real pedophiles. So MJ Innocent people, that's the way they need to be labeled. The MJ Innocent people are actual pedophiles, and they're trying to support Michael Jackson's behavior, in which he shows that he does look like a pedophile. Right? There's no doubt. Anybody that can't acknowledge that Michael Jackson's behavioral patterns is that of what it looks like in any other setting, everybody would call it a pedophile. Because you can't understand the one truth. There was only one truth there that was explaining of that, and that was the truth, that he was an abandoned child, and he was dealing with he's got a mental problem. And that's the thing. There is no justifying of Michael Jackson's behavior. There is only an understanding of this guy he actually had mental problem. He had mental issues, and he was an abandoned child. It's a mental problem. He's mentally ill. So when the MJ Innocent people are trying to justify Michael's mental illness and say it's acceptable, no, it's not acceptable. We don't accept mental illness here and allow people like a Jeffrey Dahmer who wants to kill people and eat them. We don't accept that behavior. That's a mental illness. Now, if Jeffrey Dahmer never ever would have kidnapped and raped and killed people and ate them and shit, if he never did any of that stuff, well, then his mental illness is under control and he's allowed to function and participate in society, and we'll treat him decent. We'll be like, okay and shit, you're over. As long as you ain't killing, you ain't doing shit like that, you're allowed to have those thoughts. You're allowed to be mentally ill. You're not allowed to act out on that mental illness. Michael Jackson's mental illness caused him to act out and have inappropriate relationships with underage boys. It was a mental illness, right? And so the MJ Innocent people are trying to justify Michael Jackson's mental illness by saying it's acceptable for him to act out on his mental illness. And no, it's not. It was never acceptable. And if you're the child, if you're like a Wade Robson, and Michael Jackson is walking around with you like you're his girlfriend, there's that one photo where he's walking with Wade Robson he's got an umbrella, and they're walking around together on Neverland, and Michael's got his arm around him, looks like his little girlfriend and shit, right? That's not acceptable. If Michael Jackson took James Safechuck to a jewelry store, and in disguise, the cops were actually called. It shows how inappropriate it was, because it's a mental illness. Because what people saw was some black man wearing a disguise with a young white boy, and he's buying jewelry. Everybody in the real world knows that something's wrong here. And what it was is you were dealing with a mentally ill Michael Jackson who thought that was acceptable because he's Michael Jackson. He thinks people have to accept my mental illness, and I can go around and do all kinds of stuff and do things like that, and people won't say anything. But the real world people who didn't know it was Michael Jackson, when they saw that, all they saw was, this is something wrong. And they called the cops on him. And because of that, they have video. So there's actually video of Michael Jackson taking his little girlfriend, James Safechuck, to buy him jewelry. And then James Safechuck later on proclaims that the jewelry that Michael Jackson bought him was later used on a wedding ceremony. Now, do I know if that wedding ceremony is true or not? Absolutely not. I have no idea if it's true or not. But the kid that was in the jewelry store with Michael Jackson said that. And we know that the jewelry store things on video. We know that happened, that Michael Jackson took James Safechuck alone to a jewelry store and bought jewelry. We know that happened. And then James Safechuck has later produced jewelry saying, this is the jewelry that Michael gave me. So he's got evidence. That's evidence. And when somebody like that has that kind of evidence, and then they make a statement saying he was being molested by this guy, you have to listen to that. You have to listen to that, and you have to say, that can be possible. even though I do not think it's possible, and I'll explain, I'm not right here, I'm not going to, but I can explain more of what actually occurred. But for any MJ innocent person to say that that was acceptable means that you are actual pedophiles, because everything of that behavior, and there's actual evidence, there's an actual accuser who's got actual evidence who's saying Michael sexually abused him. And what you people are trying to do is you're trying to justify Michael's behavior and say it's acceptable because you guys are pedophiles and you are now trying to validate this pedophile behavior. And there's nothing, any person out there that's an MJ supporter, you cannot do anything to change the facts. There is not one piece of evidence you can get and show me that can ever take away that that is facts and that is evidence and it happened. You know, so the only thing that can ever clear up Michael Jackson's name is to get the truth about him understood, to what was the cause of his mental illness. That's it. Michael Jackson was mentally ill. Like I said, if you're a moonwalker, you don't think Michael Jackson was mentally ill, which means you don't know who he was. You're not a fan. You're not a fan. You don't care about this guy. You have no understanding of his artwork. You have no understanding of his soul. You don't know anything about him. You're a fraud. The MJ innocent people, you're trying to validate behavior which appears to be pedophile in nature because we don't know the mental illness that was causing that behavior. Ends up being that Michael is an abandoned child. That was the answer. But you can never relinquish the facts that Michael Jackson's mentally ill. And anybody that says he's not mentally ill, go find another person who hired a private doctor, force that doctor to become his drug dealer. Dr. Murray never pushed propofol on Michael. Michael Jackson forced Dr. Murray to become a drug dealer for him, because that's what mentally ill people do, who have drug addictions, who've got problems, and they use people. That's what Michael Jackson did with Dr. Murray. He used him because Michael's mentally ill. He's the one with the fucking problem, not Dr. Murray. Michael was the one with the problem. It's a thing called capitulation. There's suicide where you actually kill yourself. And there's a word called capitulating where you slowly kill yourself. So Michael Jackson did like the slow kill. He capitulated. He slowly gave in. And that's why he throws his hands up. This is it. I have given up. He's capitulated. And whether Michael Jackson actually committed suicide or not, it doesn't matter, because he was the one who was requesting of the drugs. Just like in any other situation, because there's like the singer Jim Morrison, like I'll talk about the Doors, Jim Morrison. The story of Jim Morrison, it was that he was found dead in a bathtub. But what happens now, and they say it was like a heroin overdose, stuff like that. But I've heard a woman now who has come out and claimed that her boyfriend was the guy who actually gave Jim Morrison the shot of heroin. And then he gave him the shot, and Morrison like OD'd. And then the guy came back and told the girl, he said he was a lightweight. That's what he said. That's what she says he said. That's the story that's out there, right? Now, we don't know exactly if it's true or not, but it does make sense and stuff, right? And I was talking about heroin, and I was talking about taking the drugs, because the thing about heroin, because I was talking about my dad being a chemist, because what my dad explained to me about heroin is that what happens is when you take drugs, that there's a level of where the drug will kill you. And they say if you take this, because they know like this much drugs, and if your weight is this amount, then this is the amount it takes to kill you, right? And so they know what that level is. And so what my dad explained to me why heroin was dangerous, because he said that the level of the drug that it takes to get you high compared to the level it takes to kill you, he said that's really close. This is how he explained it to me. Like I said, my dad worked in chemistry, knew a lot about the drugs and stuff, right? So my dad actually explained things about drugs to me and shit. Actually told me some of the things about how drugs actually worked and shit, right? So that's how he explained it. He told me that the level of what it takes to get you high compared to the level of what it takes to kill you is really close. And some people, that's how they make a mistake and they die, because they take a little bit too much, you know, and then it kills you. But that the stuff that's coming out, what's this? I forgot the name of the fentanyl. That fentanyl stuff is like 100 times more powerful than heroin. It's supercharged. It's the supercharged shit, right? So the amount of what it takes for that shit to kill you is really small, right? And then when they put that shit in a drug and you don't even know it's there and you've never done it before, and it kills people and they're just annihilating. There's thousands upon thousands of people right now every year are dying because of this stuff is out there. So like what I say, when you get into drugs, it's not like when I was younger, there wasn't no fentanyl. So the chances that you were going to OD and die off of this stuff was really, really small and shit, right? But now you don't know what the fuck you're getting. It's really hard to know what you're getting. You got to know where it's coming from. It's hard. Like I said, I don't recommend people to do that. I would look for a proper legal source, because magic mushrooms are kind of coming into play, and if you get it from a legal source, then you can trust that and shit. And I would recommend that you should try that stuff. But other than that, don't go on the black market and be just trying drugs. Do not do that shit. It is way fucking too dangerous. Even to expand your mind and open it up, it's not worth it anymore. It's kind of just stay stupid and stay the fucking loser until you can find a right source where you can trust it and shit, because you can't trust the shit out there. Do not fucking mess around with black market fucking narcotics anymore, because they are way fucking too, they are intentionally trying to kill the people. Don't do it. These kids are dying all the fucking time. It's ridiculous and shit, right? Okay, so that's enough. There's Michael Jackson's soul, connected right to Diana Ross. That's the soul that it's connected to. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, the irony that she's in his will, you know, there's no doubt about it. When he's all doped up on with Dr. Murray, he's talking about the abandoned children and feeling their pain. I have all the evidence to back up everything of which I say, including that the Moonwalkers are fake fans and that the MJ innocent people are trying to normalize pedophile behavior. I've got all the evidence to prove all of that shit. Not one of them will ever stand up and challenge any of my work, because it cannot be challenged. That's why they all sit there in silence. And then they create some other story and make it think it's some kind of, it's garbage crap. None of them can deal with any of the reality of what I fucking deal with, because they are fake, fraud, blue pill losers. They've never taken the red pill. They've never went through the fucking looking glass and seen the other side to open their eyes to the reality of the world that's right in front of them and shit, right? Okay, so I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.